My conversation today on Behind the Act is with Lizzy McAvoy. She's an accomplished singer-songwriter and multi-medium creator who's enjoying diving into the non-music business corporate world. We're talking about her experience of navigating the music industry from a very young age and how her relatively new corporate interest has let her newest music be the truest to her. I'm Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act with Lizzy McAvoy.
Singer, songwriter, producer, wildlife rehabber, cooking show enthusiast at one point, TV and film producer, and now corporate gal.
I love it. That'll be so easy to list out.
Seven?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I'll try
you
to
should do
figure
like
something
the
out.
credits and just like roll it across the screen.
That would be so funny.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I haven't even listed my hobbies, and so then you
Right.
just have it keep going even
Yep.
further.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Underwater basket weaving.
Yeah. Haven't done that one yet, but it's on the list. Quilting is on my list. I feel like that's like kind of in
Oh,
the
you
same.
need to see Carrie's studio.
Oh, okay.
I mean, she went through a sewing course and like for a year,
Yeah.
like an intensive, and
Yeah.
and has stuff downstairs. So
I
it's pretty cool.
love to sew. I don't do it enough.
should.
During COVID, that was what I did. Is I made masks, and I made
Okay.
hundreds of masks.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
I really like got into the whole sewing thing. Oh yeah, I sent them to all of my doctor's offices, gone on my dentist, all the veterinarians that I knew, and then I was shipping them all over the country. So yeah, it was pretty fun. Gave me
Amazing.
something to do during COVID.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. I might miss something on this recap, so
That's
feel
fine.
free to correct it. But you started off performing at age 4. You're writing songs, falling in love with songwriting. Your family moves to Nashville. You
Yeah.
get signed as a publisher super early, and then another one, and then you start doing producing, and then you're jumping into corporate now. And you've also done video production, the cooking show.
It's a mouthful.
That is so funny. And I feel like so many people, you're excited literally about this corporate jump, which is funny to me.
Yeah.
Because so many people want to go from corporate to art, and you're like, I've got art.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's exciting you about the corporate stuff?
It's nothing I've ever done, ever. I am a creative person, and I've never, ever had a traditional job. Like, I clock in at 7:30 in the morning, and I clock out at 4, and I have my 30-minute lunch during the day. I work Monday to Friday. Never. I've always kind of been the master of my ship and sailing it. And so this has been definitely a new adventure and a new experience. I'm excited because it's challenging. Like, I am one of those people that I feel like, we have whatever amount of time that we have to live life, and I want to be challenged. I want to know that I tried it all. I don't want to be afraid. I don't want fear to rule my life. I dealt with that for a really long time, being afraid of things. And now, to me, it's scary. Like, making the decision to do this was scary. And I talked to my husband, Brad, and I was like, what am I doing? But I never wanted fear to rule me. And I like the challenge of it. That's what I'm excited about.
Do you feel like having that consistency requires more discipline, that gives you more help, or I don't know, how's that?
It's definitely been a life adjustment, 100%.
Yeah.
It's been me, I think what's been really good about it is I've had to really dedicate portions of my day and my life to certain things. Like, in the morning, I dedicate a portion of my time to my animals. At night, then I have to dedicate time to either my animals, hanging out with my husband. Maybe I want to do something for myself. And then my weekends my life is very structured now, coming from a very I woke up on Monday and I really don't want to do anything. So I'm just going to sit on the couch and play video games all day or whatever. That doesn't exist in my world anymore. That's been the biggest adjustment, is really structuring my life. However, on the flip side, that structure, I think, has allowed me to have more me time and to take care of myself more.
Interesting.
Yes,
Okay,
because it is structured. Now, on Sundays, I clean the house. I meal prep my meals. So now every day I'm eating healthy. I'm not being oh crap, I forgot to go to the grocery store, so let me just run up to Taco Bell and get Taco Bell. I am actually eating I'm eating whole grains. I'm eating proteins. I feel like I really love the wind down at night. So like I'm reading my books at night. I listen to audiobooks while I work. Like that's like a super me time thing. My weekends I spend with my friends. Brad and I can like plan actual date nights with each other because like I know when I'm going to be off. I know Friday nights, like him and I are going to go out and have a nice dinner. And or we're going to stay home and we're going to drink some wine and like that's what I really love. Like that, I'm getting that me time now.
It's so funny because people, at least for me, it's like I feel so free in my schedule. But yeah, seeing the benefit to having a structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and maybe you'll relate to this. I feel like when you do music and also like the film thing, your schedule is super open for the most part because it's flexible. You're designing it, you're picking, you're doing stuff. But there's always that like thought in the back of your mind of being like, "Ooh, I just need to leave it open in case I get that phone call or in case I need to edit that video or in case I need to do this." Like I felt like that's the thing that I've like noticed now is like my life isn't really, there's no sort of that hesitation of being like, I kind of can't commit to something because I would always be like, "Ooh, well, maybe I might get called about a gig." And so I felt like I was always reworking so much stuff, especially like the fun stuff in my life, like hanging out with my girlfriends or, I wanted to go on a trip. I've rescheduled so many trips because a gig came up. Or Brad and I wouldn't schedule vacations because we would be like, "Oh, we're going to get a call to work on a show." Right. And the problem is that is the majority of your income, especially like if him and I would get on these big shows, like 3 or 4 month run shows, that's the majority of our income for the year.
And just to be clear, because we are going to talk about your music stuff and what got to the music stuff. But when you're saying shows, you literally mean TV shows, right?
Shows,
so like that's the other side of your life.
I worked on reality television shows for 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, and I worked in the production world of it. So I would be on a show for 3 to 4 months at a time. And they say it's 5 days a week. It's really 7 days a week.
Right.
And and I would, one of the shows I'd travel all over the country and I would not be home at all. So it's a big sacrifice. But yeah, I did that for 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Did that lend towards some of the mental health stuff you talked about?
Absolutely,
that went towards your latest album?
I think yes and no. I think it was starting in music at a really young age. That's all I'd ever known was writing songs, working, also being my own boss. I knew how to communicate with co-writers. I knew how to communicate with musicians. And I knew how to communicate with publishers. Outside of that, I was super anxious to kind of communicate in the real world. I didn't like it. Once I kind of left my little musical bubble, I did not feel comfortable. Working in production on TV shows, you have to communicate with everybody and you have to not be afraid of anything, really, because you have to get things done. So my job was basically cold calling companies and places and asking them if they could do something like on a certain budget, like if they could do it on a really quick turnaround time. And so that really helped me with my anxiety of like, first of all, calling people on the phone. I used to have like super phone anxiety. So it helped with that. But then learning how to be a manager and a leader. And that was really great. I knew how to manage and lead myself, but learning how to do it with other people, I had to have tough conversations. I had to fire people before. I had to, have people come in and tell them constructive criticism. And I was super anxious having those conversations. But then I would do it and be like, "Oh, okay. It's not that bad. Like, these people still like me." Like, I was so worried that people were going to hate me because I would be like, "Hey, what you did was not good."
Right.
You
suck.
And whenever I give like constructive criticism, I'm so blunt about it. Like I am not good about sugarcoating it. And so I was always worried that I'd be too blunt. That really helped with my mental health on that aspect. The hard part about it was being away from home. It was really tough. I think having Brad, who's my husband, having him be a sound guy and being the sound engineer on sets, I think having him be gone and then I would get onto shows. Sometimes we would be on the same show at the same time. I worked on a show called Farmer Wants a Wife and him and I were both on it. And that was the one where I'm traveling all over the country. And I know Farmer Wants a Wife. It's a great show if you want to watch it. It's on Fox. It's a reality dating show. But that was tough, like having sitters coming in and watching our animals, and it felt like life just kind of fell apart a little bit when we would do that. I think for my mental health, it was just being on set is really stressful. And sometimes you don't have great leadership above you. You just don't. I think with music, I love music. I'll put up with a lot with music. And I did. I will put up with a lot of crap because I love it. And there's not a lot that's going to deter me from doing it. I realized after doing TV shows for 2 years, I realized that I really enjoyed doing it. I love the people. The people that work on crews and the people I got to work with, some of the best people I've ever met. I made lifelong friends working on TV shows.
Yeah.
I love that. But I didn't love creating TV shows as much as I loved creating music. And I think I'm really lucky that I could understand the difference, that I have been able to have a career where I loved something so much. Music was something that I have always loved. And I think I got really lucky that I got to do TV shows and realize that, you know what, there is something that I actually love more.
I love that.
And I'm so happy I had the experience. It developed me as a person at a very crucial time in my life where I was learning how to grow up, and it really helped me grow up.
Amazing. And you told me your latest album is the most honest.
Yeah.
Right. But you've written, you said more than 4 songs in the past. I'm just teasing. Do you know how many songs you've written or published? Or
Oh my,
idea?
Well, when I was at Universal for 4 years, I wrote 400 songs there. So that's just a 4-year span. It's got to be in the thousands at this point.
Right.
It's
Incredible.
a lot. I wrote probably 200 at Major Bob independently. I probably wrote a couple hundred. In the last year and a half, I've written 7 albums for the sync company. So that's so it's just in the last year and a half, the number's definitely gone up.
That's incredible. So what is it about your latest release through them too,
Yeah.
right? Like
2020 was I think that was a really pivotal year for a lot of people. And I think it made me rethink a lot of things. My husband and I started dating at the end of 2020, and I was falling in love, and I was realizing he was going to be the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And that not only is really exciting, but it makes you rethink a lot of things too. I was coming out of having my own independent publishing company and running everything independently to having talks with a couple companies that I might re-sign and might, go into embark on another deal. COVID hit, they completely fizzled. So I felt like a lot of hope got kind of sucked out of my sails with the music thing. And then I was just stuck in love bliss, and it was great. And then 2021 rolled around, and the music, it just kind of shifted. The whole industry shifted. It was really hard for me to get meetings. I took meetings, but nobody was really wanting to do anything, and I didn't really know where I was going. I felt really hopeless. I felt like I was just kind of stranded out on an island, and I had no idea what to do. And that was the first time in my entire musical career that I felt that way.
Yeah.
And I thankfully just fell into working on a music video, and then music video turned into working on reality television shows. Like, it was the wildest, craziest adventure, and I was making great money doing it. And Brad and I got married, and and it was perfect for us. It was perfect. It was just, it fell at the right time. But I took 2 years off from doing music. I didn't touch a guitar. I didn't write a song.
Whoa.
Did nothing.
Okay.
For 2 years. And I kind of thought, oh, this is it. Like, I had my run. I had been in it professionally for probably 18 years at that point, and I was done. I had hung up my hat. And that was emotionally hard to imagine never doing music. It makes me emotional now thinking about it.
Yeah.
To have something so ingrained in your life. And I got really lucky because this wonderful sync company had reached out to me. And they're Bigger Story Music, and they had said, we really want you to write a record for us. And we want it to be your songs, and we want you to sing it. And I was like, I'm out of the game, kids. Like, I'm out. They were really patient, and they waited a year, and they came back, and they were persistent about it. I'm really grateful for that. They were super persistent, and they said they came back and they said, well, okay, well, you don't have to do your record, but we've got a great Americana artist, and would you be interested in writing all the songs for her record? And I talked to Brad about it, and I was like, I don't know if I even know how to write songs anymore. And he was like, don't be. It makes me feel silly even saying it now. He was like, don't be ridiculous about this.
Right.
And I was like, but do I? And he was like, do you know how to ride a bike? He's like, when was the last time you did it? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I got my guitar, and I started writing her record. And there's a lot of honest songs on there as well. And throughout that 2020 to that 2023 period, I was dealing with some pretty severe anxiety. So I was going to therapy weekly. I was working through a lot of that. And I think that going through that part of it too, music became therapy for me as well. And I think but her record became a really good outlet for me. And then they kind of finagled me into a couple more. So I wrote her record, and then I wrote 2 country records for them. And then, so it kind of
They
started
keep kind of dropping you can still do your own if you want.
And they kept saying, and I was like, no. Like, the artist thing is done for me.
Right.
And then finally I agreed to it. And I don't know why. I just was like, okay, sure. And they just started flowing out of me. And I think the main track on there, Letter to My Past, that was the one that I wrote in like maybe 30 minutes. It just there are certain songs that whether they're gifts, whether they are just a moment where the music fully connects with the soul, it just came out. And it was everything that I felt like I had gone through in those past few years.
Some of the words on that one hit me for sure. I forget the words exactly, but it's something like, I'm sorry that's all you'll ever know. Or it's Dear Past, I'm sorry for the things I can't take back. I'm sorry it's the best you ever had. And there's one line in there that I remember when I was playing the guitar. I'm one of those people where I like to play and the lyrics just kind of flow out. It's rare that I have lyrics just written down and then I write the music to it. It's definitely like that's the marriage for me. It's a 50-50 marriage. And I was playing it, and there's one line in there, and it says, hindsight never finds a foolish kid. And I remember singing it, and I shocked myself. And I was like, did I just say what I thought I said? And it made me really emotional. I started crying because I thought, it doesn't. Hindsight does not find a foolish kid. And if 33-year-old Lizzy could go back and talk to 23-year-old Lizzy, who is I would say in the height of my songwriting career. Let me rephrase. My height of my songwriting career in my 20s. Because I think I might be in the height of my songwriting career now, which is really wild. In my 20s, I was signed at Universal Publishing. I was felt like I was on the top of the world. And man, if I could go back and talk to her, that whole song was that. It really was. And then the kind of the bridge of that song is just kind of talking to myself now and just, don't be afraid. Like, Lizzy, do not let fear hold you back, because that is a weapon in itself, and I'm tired of it using it on me. Yeah, I personally need to hear that so much. It's something you said before too. It's like, I wish I would have released more songs.
I wish I would have. Yeah.
Explain to me, I guess, what that means, because you just said you have so many songs, right? Yeah. But what's the difference between releasing them and writing them? I know it might sound obvious, but
no. I mean, I think writing songs. We're our worst critic, and we're always going to be. I know I'm 100% my worst critic. And I know in my heart, if the progression is going well for me as a creative. It's always going to get better. And that's my hope. So I really fell into this horrible funk pretty much my whole career of like, well, oh, this is such a great song. Everybody loved that song in that moment. I knew in 6 months I was going to write something that was better. I was going to live more life. I was going to get older. Well, I'll just wait. You know, it's like, it's chasing the impossible. I think as creatives, that's what we're always doing. It's chasing the impossible instead of living in the reality of where we're at in our creativity. I just went to the Chicago Museum of Art. It was the first time I ever went to an art museum. And they had a lot of Picasso's work there. I don't know much about Picasso, so hopefully like people that know art are not like, oh, okay, Lizzy, whatever you're talking about right now, stop. If he had not released his paintings throughout his life, we would have never seen the progression. We would not have seen who he was early on, who he became, and that structure, the color, the darkness, as if I remember correctly, he suffered from a lot of mental illness. And as that started to take over in him as a person. So for me, I wish I would have cataloged and I would have released to show the timeline of my life and to show the timeline of me as a songwriter and that development. Because I did start writing songs when I was 11 years old and I signed my first deal when I was 18. I wish I would have done my sort of history of myself in that way.
Do you feel like you are currently operating in a way that you look forward to the 10 years from now, Lizzy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. These feel like the best years of my life. And I don't say that in a way where I'm going to look back and be like, oh, I wish I was back in my 30s. Absolutely not. I think I'm hitting my prime and I'm just keep on going. I feel so great. But I think I've gotten to a great place with my anxiety. I've gotten to a really good place with my mental health. Case in point, why I took this corporate job. Because to me, my mental health is the most important. I cannot show up for my husband. I cannot show up for my friends. And I can't show up for myself if I'm not right.
Right. It's fascinating to me because I get anxiety thinking about the idea of getting a corporate job, you know? And I don't mean that it is funny, but like not in a playful or joking way. I'm very I get anxious with the idea of that. And I've had jobs in the past, but they don't last for more than 9 months or something, 6 to 9 months usually, especially if it's more full time, you know, I just like, ugh.
Well, no, I think any creative would see a quintessential 9-to-5 job, the traditional setting, as chains. And for me, I see it as wings.
I love the way you've communicated, though, the freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, because it gives you permission on day X or whatever to do the things that matter the most.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just this past week, I agreed to play a private gig. So I was hired to play a private gig on Saturday. And I also wrote 2 more songs for Bigger Story.
Casually.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I wrote them within the same hour, which is crazy. I sat down to be I had blocked off Monday and Tuesday night to write them after work. And I ended up writing both of them back to back, which was totally unexpected for me. But apparently I was just in the vibe. But I think that I'm able to structure it now that way that I can be yeah, I can absolutely take that gig. Or I'm not trying to it was really hard when I was writing for Bigger Story and being on the road with shows because I couldn't travel with my guitar. So then I didn't have my, my vessel to help me create the music. So I'd have to wait until I got home. And then I'm so exhausted from being on the road. I'd have maybe a couple days at home to do my laundry and try to sleep all day. And then I'm trying to write, I would come off the road and I'd write, a whole record for them in 2 days.
Unbelievable. By the way,
Yeah.
we didn't pick it up, but the ukulele over there
Oh,
on the
yeah,
wall,
yeah, yeah.
you have to try it.
I'm so
It's so
excited.
cute.
I'm
And just
excited
for
about-
context
just
for
for-
people,
yeah.
it's like a ukulele sounding
Yeah.
little baby guitar,
Yeah.
and it's one of my favorite
Maybe
things.
I can write your theme song for the podcast in that
Yes!
small amount of time. We'll see how we can put my songwriting skills to test.
Right.
Me bragging about like, oh, I wrote 2 songs in an hour.
No, I love it. But I also want to acknowledge that you find time for lots of other hobbies and things
do.
as well. Outside of having a corporate job, and I feel like so many friends of mine are like, if I could finally get out of having to work 70 hours a week at my
Yeah.
job or something, I'm like you'll be way. I'm not trying to minimize the pain and the structure that it comes, especially working a job you don't like, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of fatigue that comes from that.
Yep.
But I know so many people that are more prolific in their art working outside of the, again, 50, 40, 80, whatever hours a week. And I think that's amazing, that structure.
Yeah. No, and I think I lived the majority of my life that way. And
In which way? You mean the
I've
free-
lived my life with the no structure of
Right.
just literally waking up, and I could create music all day if I wanted. It didn't matter. And I could just kind of do whatever I wanted to do. So I think I've had that flavor. I ate that ice cream for a really, really long time. So this is my new flavor.
Right.
I think it's gonna stick for a while for me. I really like it. And like I said, I'm going to school. I'm getting my undergraduate degree. So it's definitely, I'm gonna be stuck
Which again,
doing
you've
that
never
for a while.
done.
Never
which is-
done.
I love.
I'm
yeah.
going back to school in my 30s. I can't wait to go back to school shopping, get my new erasers and my little binders.
That's always fun. I kind of want to do that.
I love
anyway.
back to school shopping.
Yep.
Brad and I were in Target the other day and we walked by it and we were just like, can we just walk there and touch everything? Like, I was like, oh, I loved getting my new backpack, my new matching lunchbox. Oh, it was so great.
That was always my favorite thing, like starting
Yep.
the year off with an old backpack or a new backpack and like perfectly organizing all of the pencils and all of the erasers and the papers and the folders. And I was just like, look, I figured it out.
Yep.
And I do this now to this day, by the way, like as a 40-year-old being like I'll like perfectly organize stuff and it feels so ready to work. And then it just falls apart.
Yeah.
like,
Well, because
and the
we're
same thing happens.
creatives
Totally.
and like we
I'm
cannot.
still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. I remember when I would I did production on top of, I still do. It's not as big as I used to, but oh my gosh, when I would create a song, like my studio, I would have to be very conscious and I would organize my studio beforehand because by the time I was done creating the song, instruments everywhere, capos, picks, because
Yep.
I played 8 different instruments. And so I would have them all pulled out and they were all over the place, and then I'd run out of stands, so I've got to sit on the couch and the ottoman, and like one's just laying on the floor, and like
Yeah.
I've got like 3 cups of some beverage that's just sitting there, and like 2 plates of a meal that I had, and it was just a complete disaster. At the time, I would eat so much candy too when I was working, and so I'd just have wrappers everywhere, and then like by the end of the night, I'm like turning my studio light off, and I'm like, what happened? Like absolute bomb, like just went. Like a creative bomb, just threw everything around my studio.
So funny.
Then next day I have to come back and reorganize all of it.
And that part, that's so hard for me is like the coming back in once it's a mess.
Yeah.
Like this space, I generally feel like I'm able to keep it relatively clean even after making the big messes. Like at the end of the day, I have to pick it up.
Oh, yeah.
But this is right now basically the only place in my life that's realistically that way.
Yeah.
My garage is a mess and my car is a mess. And
When I see people that have organized garages, I'm like, are you an alien?
it's
Like,
so funny. Right.
is this how we know like that you're not from this planet?
Some of
like-
my old garage pictures of and reality,
Yeah.
I'll have to show you. It was that. It was like freakishly organized, and I loved it because I had freedom
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go create. And
Yeah.
like Elliot, my oldest, has been asking for this bed wall kind of system bookshelf thing in his room, and I've been like, dude, I really need to get the garage organized. And like a few days ago, I was like, no, I don't. I can climb through, and I mean, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
But it's still like enough that I was like, we can like find the pieces that we need and make it happen. And it took like 40 minutes, you know, it's like, he's been wanting that. And I've been like, no, the garage has to be organized.
Yeah.
And he's like, no.
I have to do A, B, C, and D first before I accomplish this.
Yeah.
I definitely have a very similar mindset as well. But I'm also one of those people like out of sight, out of mind. So things just kind of get pushed away and the door shut.
That's an anxiety thing for me. It is like I'm the worst. In fact, the garage is still kind of piles out in the open because I'm afraid of stuffing it into a place. Like, because I know how to do that well, like to like Tetris it away.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but I know that I won't go address it.
Yeah.
If it goes away to somewhere.
Yeah. The last year I've gotten really good about going through everything. So the upstairs of our house, like pretty much everything has a place and it's not crazy. Brad's so cute. He is a like kind of a bucket person or like a little pile person. And so he knows where everything's at in those areas. So I have been the lovely wife who's been like, I'll clean your studio for you.
No.
And then I organize it. And then he has no idea where anything's at. And then I don't know what that wadget thing is that he had laying there. And he's like, where's my doodly bop? And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, no, that thing. It looks like blah, blah, blah. And then he has to show me a picture. I'm like, oh. And I was like, oh, yeah, I just put it over there in that compartment labeled doodly things. And but I've learned my lesson now after our over a year of marriage that I do not touch the piles because in his mind it is completely organized.
That's not to go back to the garage downstairs, but seriously, but like I know exactly where so many different random things are, and I'll walk out there and be like, why? Like, and things that don't belong there too, like things that are like, why did I put that there? And I can just go straight to it. Which is not ideal, but it's still, but it works unless someone puts something on top of it or they decide to move it and pick it up and then
you're done for. Yeah, I do not work well in that aspect. Like I don't work well with things being in like piles or in buckets or places. Like I have to have very designated areas for me to ever find anything on planet Earth.
Right.
Like all the batteries, they all live with the batteries. That's just like I can't. We can't have some that live in the junk drawer and then some that live in my office. Like I was very strategic about making sure like all the AA's, all the 9 volts are in one area in the office in the bookcase. Like, or I'm lost. I can't. I won't make it in the world.
I love it.
Yeah.
What makes a good song?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
And totally related to organization and batteries.
Right. Yeah. I will answer what makes a good song for me. As I'm trying to decide, like, if I want to answer as a songwriter or as a listener, but I feel like actually it probably could go both ways.
Answer both.
For me, I am a melody junkie, so melodies are the thing that attracts me the most initially to songs, and I find that throughout my career, that's probably what people have sought out for me is my melodies. And lyrics were something that I had to really work at and had to probably do actually more training and more thoughtful work on them. But melodies initially, that's something, I mean, I could just be riding in the car, like Spotify's got a playlist going, and that's something that will instantly grab my ear and I'm turning it up and I'm attracted to the song. So good catchy melody. And then lyrically, I like conversational lyrics. I like when people find something that seems so generic and they make it prolific or they make it interesting. And I find that to be really cool. I also love songs that have really cool titles. And then however they've decided to, like some of the current ones right now, you've got Espresso, Sabrina Carpenter, you've got Chapel Roan, who's got Pink Pony Club. Like, I'm super attracted to songs that have like really just funky titles. And I'm like, ooh, I want to listen to that. I know that's a very basic answer to
No, I'm curious.
But
I had no expectations. I'm curious.
Yeah, I always go by the fact that when we're writing songs, we're writing about the same topics over and over again. We're writing about love is really the number one. Faith, money, like greed or envy, and life. I mean, like, it is just very, very basic things. And I find it so interesting because I had somebody ask me once, they're like, well, how does music not get boring? And I said, well, because everybody's experience with those things, my experience with love is so different than your experience with love. So when we write from a personal place about music, that's how we're retelling the story differently. We're talking about the same thing we've been talking about for hundreds of years. But we're just saying it because it's coming from our perspective. How I see the color green is different than the way you see color green. It's still green, but how we're going to describe green is very, very different. So I think that's the cool thing about music, and that's what I think makes not even a good song a great song, is when somebody has the ability to not only bear their soul into a song, but explain love or life or faith or money in a really fascinating way that makes me even be introspective in myself and be like, oh, wow, okay, I like that. Or their experience is so personal to you. They don't know you. Olivia Rodrigo has a song right now, and it's called Teenage Dream. And it's talking about, my interpretation of the song is her talking about being in the music industry very young. And it's something that I can 100% relate to. She's talking about the fact of she's afraid of getting older because she kind of came out as this young prodigy, this young, talented artist, songwriter. And I can relate to that on so many levels. And, being told that you're, wise for your age, you're good for your age, you're talented for your age. Well, what happens when I get to the point where I'm at the age where you're just good and you're just wise and you're okay? That's terrifying. So she's writing this song, I'm assuming from her own personal experience, but it hit me on such a deep and personal level. That's a great song. That is a great song.
I love that. And, okay, so you've written so many songs, and you continue to be passionate about and excited about doing it, and it continues to drive you. Can you speak to how, even though we live in a world where there's a ridiculous number of new songs continually growing, and with tools like ChatGPT and all of this automated everything, more and more and more is going to happen. How does that not, because I don't think it does, but how and why does that not decrease the value of the new songs that you're writing and that other people are writing and releasing?
I think it is hard because there's a lot of noise. Like, I mean, we are getting inundated with new music constantly. I even noticed when I listened to like the new pop playlist on Spotify, I mean, it's just that the turnover on it is wild. First of all, I think if you're born with music in your blood, good luck. You're not getting away from it. Any person that's artistic, if you're born with it and it's in your DNA, don't run from it. If not, you're going to be running your whole life. Like, it's just there. My encouragement, and I think for me, because I felt the same way, like there's so much content out there. Like, where's mine going to like fit into this world? At the end of the day, first of all, is just personal. Like, I need to create music to be happy. That's just that's one. And I don't think you should ever create music if it doesn't make you happy. Because when it becomes a job, then you lose that beautiful relationship with music. I think that your story has to be told. I don't think it's any different than history books being written. Photographers going out and photographing history. We have to document this time in our existence, this life. This is our job as musicians. Whether anybody's, ever going to hear it or not, it's your opportunity to put your stamp on where you're at in the world right now. I think that's really great, and I think that's really awesome. we all hope that it's going to get 1 million streams and we're going to be super famous and people are going to love our songs. Great. Awesome. But I think those are all personal reasons for me. Like, I think if anybody's listening and they're trying to figure out what to do it because you love it.
Yeah.
And because in hopes that you do reach out and you do touch somebody in a way, that I think that's why we kind of try to get through all the noise and we try to make our way through it.
Yeah.
Just so maybe one person, we've said something that makes them feel like they're not alone in the world.
Yeah. Real anxiety is terrifyingly debilitating and horrible. And so I asked this question with a tremendous amount of respect and I guess like caution, but not that I feel like you or would be at all resistant to sharing whatever. But what have you learned and carried forward after going through therapy and learning on anxiety that you it makes you stronger and better today, having gone through a period of anxiety?
I think the biggest one has been to not be afraid. I think that's like my biggest takeaway. To not allow fear to dictate how I live my life. To be more compassionate to myself. I think it's made my relationships with other people, with my husband, obviously with myself, more rewarding because I feel like dissecting myself and understanding that as human beings, it is okay to make mistakes. I was definitely a perfectionist. And it is okay to fail because in failure, we learn. And I think that's been really helpful in my relationships with people. I don't put people on a pedestal and be like, well, you have to live up to these expectations that I have created. Because ultimately, I wasn't creating for them. I was creating it for myself. I had to be the best friend I could possibly be. I had to show up for everything. I am not afraid to tell people that I'm having a bad day. I do not have to be happy, chipper Lizzy showing up. And I want to make people happy. I want to put a smile on people's face. But sometimes I could not wake up and do that.
Yeah.
And it is more painful to me to go and be around people and pretend. And so I think that I have become a more authentic version of myself. And I spent so much of, I think, my life being afraid of showing people who I truly was. Because if people don't like who I truly am, I can give you no more.
Yeah.
But now that I've shown people who I truly am, it's so less scary. That's what's wild. It was scarier to have people not like or like a version of myself than it is for people to like or dislike who I am.
Right.
Because I don't have any more to give to you. You are getting who you are getting.
Yeah. You're like, as much as I like to act. Yeah. Just kidding.
Yeah. If I, going from this podcast to meeting me out on the street, I am no different.
Yep.
There is you would have met me 6 years ago, 8 years ago. There would have been a version of Lizzy sitting here saying exactly what I was supposed to say and talking the way I was supposed to talk. And everything's great in the world. I'm perfect. Blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, and, I wouldn't have said I was perfect because I at least knew that one. Yeah. But no, I would have.
But you're trying really hard to make people believe it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, put off this, I am this artist and I know, I'm whatever I would have said. But now I'm not afraid. That's what breaking through anxiety gave me, is this overwhelming happiness in life, because fear does not control me anymore. It just doesn't. And that's not saying that it doesn't come up. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't rear its ugly head, and I don't still deal with anxiety. But I think stepping on the other side, especially when I started to get tastes of what it was like to live in a life that wasn't ruled by anxiety. All I wanted was to live in that life. I wanted it so badly.
Yeah.
And so I worked so hard to get there. And so every time anxiety comes back in, I'm like, absolutely not. You are not welcome here. So I either need to go back to my therapist and I just need to work through that situation, or I need to do my breathing, or I keep giving all the best things, but the other thing that really helped me was learning myself. Where is the anxiety coming from? What is the root? Okay, I've got the surface level situation that's happening here. Okay, so surface, this is what I'm anxious about. Where's it coming from? Where's it stemming from?
Yeah.
Digging down, figuring out where the root of that situation is at and addressing it. And that's really scary when we really start to get into ourselves and really start to be introspective and facing our internal demons. External demons, I can face those all day long. Facing my internal demons, that's scary.
Absolutely. Yeah, the fear and I want to say fear and failure, or maybe fear of failure, even though that's combining two different concepts you talked about. I tend to have an anxiety about failure, even though I say I'm not afraid to fail. Because I'm not afraid to fail on a micro level, but I'm very afraid of failing on a macro level.
Yeah.
And something Carrie says all the time is like, chunk it down. Like if you're afraid or something's overwhelming, like pick a very simple piece.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm constantly failing, and happily so, on micro situations so that I can, every skill like we were talking about, it's like I'm like learning every little piece one at a time, and I expect and want and find failure as fast as I can because it gets me close to success and consistent strategic, success in some way. But on a big picture level, like I'm definitely afraid of failure on a macro standpoint, and that's how I personally have experienced anxiety, although my anxiety has not been, I'm not minimizing anxieties I've had, but not on the same level as like what Carrie's experienced or something, or what you've experienced, I'm assuming,
Yeah. I 100% relate to that. I think coming out of this 16, 17-year career in music and, the music industry, it's a roller coaster. It's up, it's down. It's like I had so many what ifs in my career, and I had so many almost. I was almost there. I was so close. I could taste it. I could see it. Everything in the universe had lined up for that moment. And it's like reaching out, touching, and it's just that far away. That's excruciating, especially over and over again.
Yeah.
And the one thing throughout my whole career that I was always told, and when I say this, I'm not saying this in a braggy way, it's just what it was said to me. You're the most talented songwriter I've ever met. Talented songwriter, singer, producer. You have so much talent, and we just don't know what to do with you.
Wow.
And that's heartbreaking. And when I was actively in it every single day, you put on your armor and you go, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Looking back now at my former self, what a heartbreaking thing to hear. To hear that you have it all, but nobody knows what to do with you. And I had worked so hard. I had given up, and I'm okay with it, but I had given up most of my childhood for music. I did not have a childhood. I didn't go to high school. I did not, it's funny, the night that I was supposed to be at my senior prom, and this is great, this is nothing wrong with it. I was at a dinner and I got to meet Garth Brooks that night. Mm-hmm. That was my life. It was very weird, but I'm not against that. And I'm not one of those people that if I could go back, I would probably do it exactly the same. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah.
But I sacrificed and I gave so much for music. Mm-hmm. So having the realization, especially when I stopped doing it for a couple years, I think my thing with failure on that macro level of failure was, what if I live my life and I amount to nothing? Because my whole life I was gonna sign a record deal. I was gonna be an artist. My music was gonna be played everywhere. People would know my name. They would know who I was. My songs would be playing on everybody's radio. That's the dream that I grew up believing, and I was so close to attaining it. So coming down from that and then wondering to myself, will I amount to anything? Will anybody know who I am? That's scary. And that's something that I had to really process and deal with. And then I realized, and now I think where I'm at in my life, I don't need to amount to everybody. As long as I show up for my husband and I show up for my friends, and those people know who I am. And at the end of the day, if I die a happy person, I lived my life.
Yeah.
And on the macro level, I did not fail.
Yes.
If I am happy at the end, I did not fail.
Exactly. It's so huge. And the, like, had you made those things that you knew you wanted, that you almost got, they didn't know what to do with you on, right? I mean, who knows? But it seems like happiness is a lot more fleeting in that realm.
Yeah,
Of
it
people.
is. It is.
But ironically, you're also now turning back around, and you said, like, I think I'm now at the most successful part of my songwriting career. And I feel like letting go of that, like, I need to get the record label deal and I need to get all that stuff. I feel like in other industries I've seen kind of lands people in that spot where that's when they actually get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
That's kind of where my story is at, because so I came back from my, songwriting hiatus and started writing songs because I just love it and I just can't give it up. And I'm never going to give it up. I'm going to just keep playing and I'm just going to keep singing. I'm going to keep writing songs because I love it. But here I was writing these songs for a bigger story, and I get a call from Ken, who's one of the owners, and he said, "Hey," he goes, "just want to let you know," he goes, "you're nominated for, I think it was best." I was nominated for 2 awards in 2 different award shows. And one was like Best Americana Folk Song of the Year, and one was Best Vocal Performance of the Year.
What? Amazing. That's incredible.
And I was like, wait, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, here I took this hiatus, and then I'm just writing these songs, and we won both awards.
That's huge.
So now I have actual awards, songwriting awards, sitting in our family room.
Wow.
That's wild.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Congrats.
thank you.
Yeah.
But to me, it was just this pinch me moment of, not only do I feel very lucky, I feel so fortunate that I've been able to come back around. But I wrote all of those songs from a place of pure happiness because I was just writing songs because it's in my body and I have to let it out and I've got to do it. Yeah. I didn't write those songs with any expectations.
Yeah.
Just like for most of my career, I wrote songs with expectations.
I love that. That's so huge. and the expectation side, I was thinking about also when you like, am I ever going to amount to something? And I think it's so easy for us to define a version of reality. It can drive us in a healthy way, I think, to like go, this is where I want to end up. But I know I've always been wrong and would not have ever dreamt of where I am today or was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, like in a good way. Like I would have under dreamt where I wanted to be, and I didn't even know where I was heading. Like, but I think the expectations thing, that's something I have struggled with a lot. I'll get thrown off because like a meeting changes or something. Yeah. Like if I don't prepare myself, which I have grown up enough, I think now to know, and grown up's the wrong word. I'm not trying to be hateful to the past version of myself. I just like have realized how important it is for me to drop expectations. But I love how appropriate it is that you got your awards after dropping the expectations. On a personal level, do you feel like you're able to write songs with more peace, not having the what if thought of like, what if I got a publishing company behind me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because you know what it's like, and like what, I mean, I'm not minimizing. I'm sure
Yeah.
that it's all great, but
No, I think especially when you're with a company, again, going back to expectations, there are expectations that come with it. I think now I'm just writing to write. Like, I obviously have deadlines, and I do answer to somebody. And I mean, if I'm going and co-writing, or I'm writing for somebody else's project, that is what it is. But if I'm writing for a sync company, there's definitely, I have to meet a certain level and a certain bar. But I think having that experience definitely changed me as a songwriter. This is a little off topic of your question. One thing that really did help me and did change me as a better songwriter is being at publishing companies and having deadlines, having to turn around songs. I wrote with a lot of big artists, or a lot of artists that were, had just won The Voice or American Idol. And so you had one day with them. And when I say a day, you had however many hours their manager deemed that you would have to write a song with them. And the goal was to write their next single. Or at least, I mean, that's the main goal. And then at least maybe have a song on the record.
no pressure.
No, none whatsoever.
Can you just try to have a number one hit for me real quick?
So also keep in mind, like, if I'm coming in and I'm totally fried as a shish kebab, and I'm like, okay, now I have to, like, write your next single, like, blah, 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 blah. Learning the mental stamina to keep up with that was the best thing that ever came from having publishing deals, was learning how to pull crap out of thin air and make it pretty and actually make it halfway decent. Or I remember driving into some of my writes and crying in the car because I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't even put a sentence together. I'm so exhausted. And somehow figuring out how in that moment to write a good song. That's the best thing it ever did, was it put so many tools in my tool belt. So now going in as a songwriter now, I mean, especially with like the sync music, I've written country, Americana, yacht rock. I've written, my own record. I've written pop. I'm sure I'm missing some things in there. Like, I've gotten to write all of these very different, very cool records. And usually, like, on a semi-fast turnaround. And I attribute it all to those years of being a staff writer and having to make stuff happen.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to talk about two other things.
Yeah.
One is your experience in Nashville and like the historical aspect. Like, what was it like when you were first here? And then what advice would you give to new people trying to not just be heard, but like to be successful for themselves and then potentially be noticed,
Yeah. So old Nashville. I got really lucky when I moved to Nashville because I got to really experience what it was like, a little flavor of what old Nashville was like. So Nashville at the time was really 2 to 3 streets. It was 16th, 17th, 18th, mostly 17th and 18th. My first publishing company was on 17th, right on the corner of Edgehill and 17th. And at the time, like, all of your meetings took place on Music Row. So my publisher and I, Mike Doyle, I would carry my guitar and we would walk down the street to go play for a publishing company or a record label or whatever. We'd walk. It was all right there. Some of my best co-writes came from us going and grabbing lunch, and we would run into the head of Sony Publishing, or we'd run into the head of, another publishing company, and Mike, my publisher would be like, hey, this is our newest writer, and oh, well, I got to get you with this person. And that's how it worked. How I ultimately got my deal with Universal is I met my future publisher at like I think it was an album release party for another artist that we had at our publishing company at the time at Major Bob. Like, it was this beautiful community. and we all knew each other, and it was so lovely. And the fact that we were just right there on those 2 or 3 streets, it was awesome. You would have your meetings in the morning. Like I would usually had a lot of meetings like before I'd write. So I'd come in for a meeting at like 9:30, and then I'd write at either 10:30 or 11. That was kind of the classic time to start writing. And you'd be at, at the time we had Edge Hill Coffee. We had sometimes we'd venture to Fido's. That was a little far out, but at the time it was Edge Hill Coffee. And man, you'd see 5 or 6 other people having meetings. So by the time you even got to your meeting, you'd be saying hi to, all these other people. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. What are you up to? Such a beautiful community. I'm so glad I got to experience it. And then there was also at the time demo sessions were still really big. And so you would, there were a lot of studios around town that's all they did. They had session players there every single day. You would pick your top 3 songs, and that was really cool to watch because they had never heard your song ever before. So you would bring in a work tape of it, and you'd be sitting in the control room with all the guys in the band, and you'd either have the session leader charting out the song on the spot, listening to the work tape, or obviously sometimes you have your charts in advance, and all the guys are listening to it. I mean, they'd listen to like a minute and a half, 2 minutes of it and be like, okay, let's go. Go in, just rock out your song. I mean, truly Nashville. I will go to the grave saying Nashville has the most talented musicians in the world.
Absolutely
hands
incredible,
down.
Yeah.
And being able to witness that and be in the same room with musicians that could play like that, especially coming from my teeny tiny corn-fed town, holy cow. Not only did it help me be like, oh, okay, the bar is really high. Got it. Gotta just step it up here a bit. But being able to be in the room with people that talented, breathe the same air.
Yeah.
Humbled.
Yeah.
So that was what old Nashville was like. It was beautiful. And it has changed quite a bit. But technology has changed. I mean, everything about the music industry has changed now.
Yeah.
I think we had iTunes, but we were still, when I started, I was still printing CDs.
What an otherworldly experience, right? Like, and I think about so many people that, the world's different. It's really complex. In some ways, it's easier to make beautiful music, and sometimes, but it's also harder to get discovered. And then there's access, like people that don't have access to even maybe computers, and I don't know, like what words of advice do you have to people on the songwriting front? Or
I think going back to old Nashville, and I'm going to segue it into new Nashville.
Yeah.
Going back to old Nashville, back then, like, especially, when I was coming up, like, you had to, get a band together, and you had to be playing out, and you had to have a certain number of people in the crowd. And, if you wanted to release music, you had to have a record label. Like, it was very, like, structured, maybe a little archaic in its thought process. Nowadays, I mean, you got yourself a home studio, which is pretty affordable. You can figure out how to track your own music. You can be your own record label. If you can figure out how to promote yourself, you can start making the music that you want to make and not have a lot of people with their hands in the cookie jar telling you what to do. So I think that's what's really beautiful about where we're at right now with music, is that we can now start discovering as listeners really awesome, really great, really cool music that I think record labels wouldn't even touch. They would be too afraid. And we're getting to experience that now. I think that's what's really awesome. On the flip side, I think what makes it really hard is it is a lot of noise. It is a lot of inundated music. It is trying to figure out algorithms. It is constantly posting content. It's being on top of your social game. That was something that, like, I was not interested in. When I did my cooking show, people loved it, but I was not dedicated enough to putting the content out because I am a little grandma, and I did not get hip with the social medias. So I think as a songwriter now, I still go back to as a songwriter or singer, get your music out there. And I think now more than ever, as we're seeing the structure of the music industry, get your music out there. And in that process, maybe I'm speaking from personal experience because I am a perfectionist and I do set very high expectations for myself. So, the video had to be perfect. My pitch had to be perfect. I had to play it just right. Let it go. Just get the content out there because the average listener ain't gonna care. Like, they just want to hear your songs. I think people today too, they want to discover somebody. They want to be the person that knew that artist or that songwriter before anybody else did. They want to discover you. Yeah. So figure out where those people are at and let them discover you and then get to be a part of your journey. That would be my advice. Just get your music out there. Don't be afraid.
What advice would you give to a young artist that's like getting talked to by the music industry and like it is exciting, maybe talking to a label or a publisher or whatever, about how to not get taken advantage of?
Get a great music attorney. Find a great attorney. If anybody in the music industry tells you that you don't need an attorney or we're going to do a handshake deal, run the other way. Because this is the music business. It is not music, and it's not just business. It's music business. So there is a very special relationship between the two. If the person that you're wanting to sign with doesn't want to have the nitty-gritty business talk with you, then that's a problem. That's a huge red flag. Yeah. The best business relationships I have ever had in music is when I have been able to sit down with my publisher and we have been able to talk it out. I've been able to talk terms. I've been able to talk money. And then once you get all that out of the way, you put pen to paper, you get to be as creative as you want. Right. That's the best part of it. And then at that point, you don't really get taken advantage of. I mean, there are some, rare instances, but sure. You got to stand up for yourself. I am here as evidence that if you stand up for yourself, your career is not over. That is something that can be threatened to you, is that if you speak up for yourself and you go against, the big record label or even your own publishing company or your own management company, that you're done in the music industry. Absolutely not. You're not done. Awesome. You can keep going. Because at the end of the day, it is your career. It belongs to no one else. And you have to be happy with the career that you have created and you have led. They cannot do anything without you. Yeah. That's the reality. And that's really hard being young and coming up in the industry. And I'm saying this because I was not particularly that person. I started to become that person later on. I always had a good business savvy. I always knew what my contracts were. I always knew what it was expected of me. But really kind of pushing back on stuff, I struggled with that. Coming in now, I do not struggle with asking for what I want in my life and my career. I do not struggle with that anymore. So yes, it's hard, but I don't think anybody will regret standing up for what they believe in.
You're at a point now where your music is ironically prolific and exciting at the same time as taking on this corporate job.
Yeah.
What does that collectively look like for the next few years version of Lizzy? And
I don't know.
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world?
Projecting where you're heading.
Where I want to be. Yeah. I want to continue to find happiness. And that's just I'm always on the pursuit of happiness. I'm so happy right now. So I always wonder, can I get better? It does. It just keeps getting better. And that's amazing. I'm going to school. I plan on getting my undergraduate degree in business. May go for my master's if I'm feeling feisty. I'd like to try my hand at climbing the corporate ladder. I would like to own a few power suits. I'm pretty excited about that. I think ultimately one of the biggest reasons why I took this job and kind of where I see my future going is I have this beautiful, lovely relationship with my husband. And we have these beautiful animals at home. And him and I think we both relate on the fact that we've given so much of our lives to our careers. And now we feel like we're at a point where we want to live our life. And so we want to travel and we want to experience and we want to go on fun trips and we want to have fun date nights. We want to live. And that's something that I would love in the next few years, to live life. And I took this corporate job so that I could do exactly that. So that's my goal.
I love it. It's just so counter to what I'm used to. It's like,
Yeah.
but I totally honor and agree with it.
Yeah.
I love it. How do people support you?
How do people support me?
Yeah, you're in your music. Yeah.
Oh.
Like, where do they find you?
Oh, that kind of support. I was like, I was thinking emotional support. I was like, oh, let me give you my list of my friends. Do you want my therapist's number? Okay, so they can find me. I don't have a website right now. It's so under construction and has been under construction for a while, but I'm more active on social media, so they can find me on Instagram at Lizzy McAttack. And so that's LizzyMacattack. When I created that profile when I was like 18, never in my wildest dreams did I still think, but it's become a part of my personality. Everybody knows Lizzy McAttack. So Lizzy McAttack on Instagram, Facebook, Lizzy McAvoy Music. And those are kind of the two social platforms that I hang out on that people can find me. But one of these days I'll actually get my act together and have a website. But Spotify, iTunes, any place that people listen to music, they can find obviously anything that I'm singing on. And then out in the world, I have, at least 50 releases on other artists that are living out in the universe that I've written on.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with other people you think might gain value from it. My name is Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act.